Reverting back to Grug does not mean becoming a Luddite. I am talking to you right now through the internet. Clearly, I'm a fan of technology. I think the internet actually is a Hyperborean technological wonder. But I don't want you to become Ted K. pilled. Don't go off into the forests and talk to nobody and lose yourself in your own mind. No, we need to integrate the Grug back into our own psyche, not become cavemen. I'm not a big fan of this hunter-gatherer simping that goes on. People saying that hunter-gatherers were the pinnacle, they had the best skeletons or whatnot. This is a kind of a binary argument that they've created, that there's only hunter-gatherers and there's only farmers. But they forget that there's a dritte Weg. There is a third way, and that was the pastoralist. And what the pastoralists did was they figured out how to bank animal protein through their horses, through their cows, through their milk, and this allowed them to pursue other things like metallurgy and charioteering. And this gave them an advantage over these hunter-gatherers who were squabbling about in the woods all day trying to get their calories in. We don't descend from the hunter-gatherer paternal line. We descend from the pastoralist paternal line, us Hyperboreans. Another example is the Vikings. The Vikings were extremely technologically innovative for their time. They had the best shipbuilding technology. They were second to none. They were explorers, they were adventurers, they went to the Near East, they discovered Damascus steel, and they implemented that into their own armies. The Ulfbert swords that could flex instead of breaking. These Vikings were not so concerned with contemplating the essence of the eternal form of the good. Instead, they accepted that Odin is the Allfather, and now let's go out and wreck. They were not putting their intelligentsia class into these academies, into these priestly covens, and using all that mental fortitude into channeling it with ideals of philosophical systems. No, their intelligentsia was busy figuring out the properties of Midgard. The priestly dictatorship has only been hampering us. It's hampered many cultures in the world, and as soon as the culture breaks out of that priestly dictatorship, they start to flourish. And again, I see ourselves kind of in this new neo-priestly dictator where it's not the priest class of Christianity, but it's this tech science priest class where instead of developing and innovating technology, they develop and they innovate products. Okay, Tesla is not technology. The Tesla car is not free energy. It's not 0 point energy. It's a product. It's a Mick Tesla. And that's not what Hyperborean tech is. Hyperborean is easily repairable. It can sustain itself. It's charging. It's not this McDonald's tier quality of a product. And being irrational doesn't mean I want people to become cavemen and start bashing each other in the head with rocks. What irrationalism means is that we do not believe that rationalism is the ultimate driving force for humanity. Clearly, we have rational capabilities. I'm talking to you right now in a language and I'm illustrating ideas. But thinking that rationalism is the ultimate driving force is foolish. Look at the world today. Do you see a bunch of rational people walking about, or do you see something that resembles idiocracy, or even something even far worse? We're not these rational little robots. We're not Vulcans. We're not emotionless creatures. I think integrating emotion and passion and lust drives is one of the most powerful things a human being can do if done correctly. Trying to deny all these aspects of our humanity is counterproductive. A lot of people were commenting Christ is king. And I have a lot more respect for people saying that Christ is king than people saying, well, actually, you don't understand Plato. Clearly, your take on the forums is incorrect. Christ is king, gang, right? They prove my point 100%. They don't have to elaborate. They don't have to prattle. They just say Christ is king like it's self-evident. Their reason is not based on rationality. It's based off of faith and belief. And this is how billions of people on this world operate. Okay, you have the subsect of people who are like the orthobros who try to rationalize Christianity and get it into a logical formation, but the vast majority of Christians are not like this. They take it on faith, they take it on belief. And so this has a lot more alignment with what I believe, how humans operate, than the Platonic system. And the Plato bros who got upset, their limbic systems got overridden in the last video. They can never actually explain what they believe, I've noticed. I asked them, okay, what does Plato believe? What is the ultimate form of the good? And they can never actually give me an answer. Like, they say, I don't understand Plato. Does anyone understand Plato? It's a lot of commie, garbly goop, in the words of the great late Norm Macdonald. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of substance to this belief once you start to actually crack down on these Platonic people. And I've actually found about 30 prominent philosophers who have refuted Plato. And maybe I'll make a separate video about that, but the biggest contention that they have is the realm of forms. And I agree, like the realm of forms is absolutely a ridiculous notion, and there's no reason to accept that there is some sort of eternal realm of forms that is universal for everybody. Again, I'm not a Grecophile, and I think Grecophilia has really infiltrated and dominated these types of circles, and I think the time of the Greek is over. The time of the orc has come. Well, not the orc, but the Hyperborean, Faustian spirit, right? The Grecophiles, right, they love their Corinthian columns. They love their big, they think they have these ultimate big temples and whatnot, but they are different from us. They have this obsession with boundaries and symmetry and containment, whereas the Faustian Hyperboreans, we are boundless. We are ever reaching, ever expanding. We need to just keep pushing forward. You can see it in Gothic architecture, right? The Cathedral of Cologne, like that thing is just a big FU to the Apollonian spirit. It mogs any Greek architecture ever. These people who think that we just need to bring back, Greek columns everywhere and whatnot. No. Look at the Gothic architecture. It's unbelievable. It is nothing to compare to in terms of the Greek world. And the accomplishments of the Faustian world are just absolutely, you can't compare the two worlds. It's a completely different level of accomplishment that the Faustians have unlocked compared to the Greeks. The Greeks were just kind of a blip. Their time is gone, and the revival will be short-lived. But back to Grug. I mean, Grug to me is a vibrational shape shifting form that I think we all need to be able to integrate. We are far too Dionysian, and I should say we are far too Apollonian. I don't like to use that term because it is Greek, but Nietzsche used it. And I won't say we need to become Dionysian because I won't use the Greek, but we need to become more Grug. We need to become more Berserker. We need to become more Earth-Hither. We have to integrate that shamanic side of man in the modern world because we become so disconnected from it. We become so obsessed with rationality and structure. We're losing what it means to be human. Like that's what separates us from the AI, from the robots, from everything, that we have this primal side that we can integrate into our world. And I think people who have been able to integrate the Grug within them can be extremely successful, extremely powerful. I know politics is a sham, and it's just a show, a charade. But I think Donald Trump really is the ultimate Grug, right? He didn't beat the Republican rivals with these grand, rational explanations of how his policy was superior to that of Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush, right? He unseated the Bush dynasty with his Grug mogging of Jeb, right? Sleepy Jeb, low energy, lying Ted Cruz. Nobody knows lying Ted like I do, right? Like, it was just these quips and these zingers and this intuitive dismantling of these people based off of their personage, not their ideals. And that's what it means to be a Grug. Like, businessmen who are Grug, they dominate. You don't need to be this platonic Vulcan to be a good innovator, a good business guy in this world. You need to be able to integrate that Grug aspect of your psyche in order to intuit how to behave, right? The guys who are trying to meet women and using these like pickup artist scripts and trying to be all autistic about it, they never succeed because they never know how to tap into that primal irrational aspect of the male female dynamic, and they're like trying to think of lines to say, and if you're in your head, like it's already over for you in terms of that dynamic. You shouldn't have to be thinking about how to talk to women, how to attract women. You need to have that Grug part in order to attract. And the whole attraction thing, I mean, it's all pre-selection anyway. They see the Grug aspect. I don't mean all of them, but the ones who aren't on birth control see the Grug and they're attracted to it. But again, like, I've always kind of had this battle between integrating the Grug and integrating the rational mind, because at some parts of my life I am more getting rational, reading too much and trying to be, trying to knowledge max. And then the other aspect of it is I do sometimes fly off the handlebars and become way too Grug, way too Dionysian, and I'm doing magic mushrooms and rock climbing, trying to commune with the spirits. And you can go way too far off on either side. Okay. I think that now I'm at a time in my life where I've been able to walk that tightrope, but I know that any minute it's a knife edge and I can fall off the handlebars and once again descend into either sphere a bit too much. I don't do mushrooms anymore. I don't do LSD. I don't do DMT. I don't advocate for any of that stuff right now. I think that white monsters and ripping zins is a much better way to commune with the divine than any magic mushroom. For me, my shamanic practices basically revolve around drinking mead, doing zins, drinking white monster, and going into my backyard and doing pull-ups and overhead presses. And that, for me, makes me way more in tune with my ability to divinate than any book by some Greek or Plato or any types of knowledge and inquiry. I feel like I'm at a place now in my life where I understand how to intuit, how to psychically charge myself and explore things from a different angle, an irrational part. And it's very useful to be able to develop this, right? That's why we had the Berserkers. That's why we had the Elf Herders. This is part of our biospirit, the frenzy. And if we don't figure out how to frenzy in life, then we're missing out on a massive aspect of what it means to be human. That's the type of guy who says, "Well, I just saw red. I black out when I fight. I just see red. I go crazy." That is blood memory. That is the berserker within that has been repressed. If you're like that, you probably have berserker blood, and you need to figure out how to control the beast. You need to figure out how to transform into the werewolf without actually having to rely on the moon cycles. Okay, I know a lot of you are werewolves, and from werewolf to werewolf, you just have to understand that you can't just rely on the moon. If you rely too much on the moon, you're going to have a bad time. You have to understand how to do it with your own energetic field. And so that's what I mean by shapeshifting. You have to understand how and when to be a Grug. You can't always be a Vulcan. It's not there's times to be a Vulcan, for sure. And there's times to be a Grug. And if you don't know when and where to do it, then you're going to Grug when you should have Vulcan, and you're going to have a bad time. And that's the problem, is that we're just far too civilized, and that's why I like Conan the Barbarian so much, is because Conan, a lot of the themes explore the decadence and the downsides of being overly civilized. And when a civilization becomes too civilized, they're always extremely vulnerable to those on the edges who are much more barbarous in their disposition. And we could see it today in the West. The barbarians are at the edges, and they're seeping into society because we've become too placid, too civilized, and believe me, I am an anomaly. I understand that need for civility. On one hand, I am a Canadian redneck lumberjack. On the other hand, I like to wander the streets of Vienna and eat Apfelstrudel. Ja, das Apfelstrudel ist sehr gut. Im Wien, ich mag Wien. Es ist sehr wunderbar. Es ist sehr wunderschön. But that's kind of what I mean with the Grug and the Vulcan, is that I have the yearning for the wandering of Munich and Vienna, but at the same time, I am literally a redneck with a wood stove. We are paradoxes. That is the Faustian man. It is a paradox. There's paradoxes on many levels. We're multifaceted. We're not just one simple definition. If you become too Vulcan, you're basically nowhere Yuval. You can rationalize away the existence of humanity if you really want to get it. You can keep pulling at the strings of reality over and over and over again until you unthread the very fabric of being. And so I think it's dangerous. The intellect it's a double-edged sword. If you sharpen it too much, you can cut yourself. And so You could rationalize your own bloodline away if you really wanted to. You could rationalize why you should never have children and why you can't ever find anybody. And believe me, I understand it. I can sympathize with it even. But people had families and had bloodlines and way more dire situations than we have today. That the Black Plague, which, by the way, the Black Plague led to a renaissance. That was such a Kali Yuga moment that we can't even really fathom it. I mean, yeah, there's like some hidden aspects to the Black Plague, but it was such a Kali Yuga moment that we can't even fathom losing 25 to 50% of the population. That just would have been absolutely off the wall, but these people still had that blood instinct in them despite the absolute despair. The fire bombings of Dresden, people still had families after that. The absolute demoralizing and humiliating result of World War II, living under the Warsaw Pact, those people still had families. Like, we have a Kali Yuga going on today, but there's cycles of it stretching back all the way through time. And I do believe that after the Kali Yuga, there will be another renaissance. But right now, unfortunately, we are the ones chosen for whatever reason to have to live under it and have to deal with it. But I believe that as we can see throughout the cycles of time, the ups and the downs, I do think that there will come a time where another golden age could potentially arise. We can ride this tiger, we can surf the Kali Yuga, we can direct these decadent, degenerate energies for ourselves. Lots of us have achieved many things that our ancestors would actually be proud of. I think a lot of us are selling ourselves short in terms of what your capabilities are and what you've actually achieved in life and how strong of attributes you really do have. We don't really have that perspective, especially when we're in our 20s. Now I'm in my 30s, I've gained a bit more perspective on life, and I can see things now that I thought that I was some big failure in my 20s, but I actually did a lot of interesting and cool things. Maybe I didn't follow the perfect path. I didn't min-max my way to having absolute financial success and career success, but I did kind of follow that Faustian drive, that spirit of not going to try to fit myself into some cookie cutter NPC mold. And I did try things and I did experiment with my life. And I may have failed a lot of things, but I learned a lot and I gained a lot of knowledge and experience that I've noticed a lot of my contemporaries who just simply followed that routine, that rational mind, that rational explanation of life path that you should follow. I don't believe that we have, I don't believe that that served them overall. Sure, they might be a little bit more economically better off or whatever, but that can change both ways very quickly for me and for them. And it has changed actually a lot of ways for me. But that's what I mean. Like, you can't listen to these Vulcans telling you just how to structure your life. Go live in a yurt with some Mongols for a while, and you'll see that these people are not worrying about these ills and these turbulences of life. They've lived a very similar life and have learned to integrate technology into their traditional ways, and it's a beautiful thing to see. That's what kind of we need to do is we need to integrate the past and the future together and thread it in such a way that it serves us in this Hyperborean spirit. Otherwise, we will be victims to both past and future. So we have to integrate and cultivate the inner Grug. And like I was saying before, the best way to kind of do this is getting in touch with that rational side, getting in touch with your runes or whatever ancestral blood memory path that arises to you personally, because it's going to be different. For me, the runes are a very integral part of my synthesizing the rationality of my primal self with my more rational modern self, and learning how to just to let go and do these strange practices that you may or may not be comfortable doing, and breaking on through to the other side, for lack of, like Luke Skywalker. He integrated the past and the future. He ascended both orders of the Sith and the Jedi. He kind of integrated them and threaded them together. Luke was not a Jedi. He was not a Sith. He was force choking people, but he was also, using Jedi training as well. He learned to ascend the paths. That's what we need to do. We need to learn to integrate and ascend this dichotomy of primal grugness and Hyperborean futurism, and bring them together into one part of our essence. So yeah, I mean, the ancestral route, do be careful with what you're trying to contact, what substances you're using. I haven't used psychedelics in 10 years. I don't really advocate for people to do it. I mean, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. I've done it. I think you're contacting spirits who are not our guys, personally. I think you're contacting archons and new age freak people, entities that are trying to throw you into a different mind, body, spirit formation. You can kind of see this with the hippies. They were contacting these same entities, and then they got thrown off the tracks and started going all love is light. And you see this with the DMT crowd in modern times, that they're kind of in contact with these entities too, and it's turning them into universalists. I just don't think that these are our spirits, and I think you need to be careful. Of course, if you're going to try it out, you're going to try it out. Just, I don't think it's necessary at all. Just drink mead. Mead is life. Mead and milk. That's all you need. So in conclusion, do not become a Luddite. Do not become Ted K. Learn to integrate the past and the present. Learn to integrate the ancestral blood memory and Hyperborean futurism into the present moment. Do not fall victim to these LARPers who tell us to just go live in the woods and renounce the modern world and all the modern amenities, while at the same time they are uploading these videos of them telling you that onto the internet. Okay, it's just kind of like a product you have to be aware of. They actually don't care. They know that there's a market for it, and they're just trying to sell you that image so that you can buy their, I don't know, their saws for your lumberjack products. It's not necessary. We have a drive to create, to innovate, to make amazing Hyperborean technology. And I think that if we deny that aspect of ourselves, we're just going to create more and more cognitive dissonance. And we need to do the opposite. We need to have less dissonance and more intuitive understanding of who we are. There's no point in this. It's just Rousseauian noble savage simping, and I am not a fan of it. Okay, I like a nice cooked juicy steak. I like a nice medium rare rib steak. I'm not just going to eat my rib steak raw. I don't care if you're a raw enjoyer or whatnot. I like my sushi, but again, cooking your food is fine as long as it's high quality food, not just slop. But again, Hyperboreans, we innovate, we become, we drive on, and to deny that will only create problems. So once again, thank you for listening. If you liked it, please subscribe. Please give me a like. I got a whole catalog of Hyperborean knowledge for you on this channel. So thanks a lot, and I will see you next time.